Oh, there we go. Full story. Hear ye. Welcome to the Dukes of Gaming podcast. My name is Ben, and I clearly haven't hosted in a while. I am the Duke of Design, joined this week by my fellow Duke. Only one Duke this time. The Duke of Rocket League, Cole. How are you hanging in there?
Hey, I'm hanging in there playing Elden Ring, one of the best games of all time. I can't get enough of it.
Yep, me too. I'm right there with you. So we will definitely be discussing Elden Ring later in the show today. But we've got a guest here with us this week. This is the first time we've ever had a guest on the Dukes of Gaming, and it is Mr. Matthew Bliss himself from the Dead Drop. How you doing, Matt?
Hey, I'm good. How are you guys?
Very good. Welcome to the show.
Do I start as peasant on the podcast at the moment? Do I have to work my way up to a Duke?
You are the Drop Dead Duke of the Dead Drop.
Dead Duke. Okay, I'll take that. Anything with a Duke in it. It's
honorary Duke of the Week. Excellent. Like I said, this is the Dukes of Gaming podcast. You can find us on YouTube, on Twitch, where we stream every Saturday night. And you can find us on all your podcast services and all that good stuff every single week. This week, we're going to be talking about Elden Ring, of course, as Cole mentioned, and also the games industry's reaction to the turmoil in Ukraine over the Russia invasion, and also an insidious NVIDIA leak going on. So we will definitely have to dig into the intrigue therein. But before we dive into Elden Ring, Matt, you said you were playing Sifu and that you needed to flex on somebody a little bit.
I did. So if it's not clear, I've been watching you guys for a little bit, and I'm very glad to be able to be here. But I think I have a very strong connection with our Duke of Education, Alfredo. In particular, the conversation on the your book club, Ben, when you're coming at him pretty hard about Kingdom Hearts. But anyway, he has been playing a lot of Sifu, and I took up his challenge when he streamed a little while ago about trying to get the full passive completion on all the bosses and getting the entire game completed, being under 25 years of age. And I'm proud to report that I've actually managed to get that done this week.
Damn.
That's
Yeah.
crazy.
And I got to tell you, I had a great time with the game. It's so like we're going to talk about this later as well, because Elden Ring, it kind of sits the same way as well. But the way that you play the game, it's so overwhelmingly difficult from the beginning. But the more you play it, the more you tap into it, the easier it gets. And I just love doing that kind of stuff with my brain. So
Yeah,
yeah,
definitely.
Sifu was such a good game. Love it.
Do you know what your final playtime was by the time you were able to complete it under 25?
In terms of hours, I think
Yeah.
it came in under 25 hours, which was lucky. It
Hmm.
might even be up to 30. I'm not sure. But look, I took my time with it. Like, I didn't want to bull rush through it. In fact, I had a misunderstanding about how the game operated from the beginning. I think mainly because I'd watched Alfredo try to do it. I tried to get in under 25 on my first run.
Mm.
So I would do the first level and then the second level. And then I'd be like, okay, I'm pretty good at those. I'm going to have another crack at level 1 and see what I can do. And then do level 2 and then try level 2 again and then again and again and again. And then feel like I've earned the opportunity to go for level 3.
Interesting.
And then up and up and up and up. And then I got to the end of the game and realized, oh no, you can't do the passive stuff. You can't save the bosses when you beat them at the end until you actually finish the entire game. So I kind of had my own barriers.
Let me ask you this: is it like a? This is what turns me off about this game. Is I hate fighting games. I hate learning combos. When there's a game that I have to learn a combo for, I hate it. I do not like it. But is this all this is? Is it combos? Because see, like Dark Souls and Demon Souls and all this, it's more about learning the bosses and the way you move your character and like that kind of thing. But I hate combos and stuff. Is that what Sifu is? And I feel like that's what it is.
It's really not, at least not to me. I know what you mean. Like, you get into the Street Fighter and the Tekken of things, and you just go in that pause menu and see like square, triangle, triangle, circle, direction, up, 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 triangle, that kind of stuff. Doesn't matter. I was a masher throughout this entire thing. The key is understanding the patterns of the enemies and really being able to effectively dodge and parry.
Well, so then very similar to the Souls games.
Very much so. And it's actually, I found it to be different in the sense that, like, there's no gear in it. All progression that you make in the game, I mean, aside from unlocking movesets, of course, is tied to how you connect with controlling the character and being able to do these things. Because there's nothing that you can't do at the start that you can't do at the end. Or say that the other way around, that makes it sound like you can do everything the same across all the levels.
Yeah.
But it's what you bring to each level and the connection you've got with the characters that just makes it better. Perfect example. I did the last boss the first time, 11 deaths. I beat him at 74 or something. Went and did him again. Nothing had changed, but I beat him at 35. Like, that's one run to the next. And that's understanding the patterns entirely. And I think it's the same with Dark Souls 2. So I think if you give it a chance and not be afraid to, like, just, grab the controller and mash everything, but get the timing right, then I think you'll be fine.
Yeah. It seems like a very special game and different. I want to try it. I'm going to wait till things slow down, but I'm going to jump in and try that at some point.
Yeah. And I'm not going to lie to you. Frustration time to the max. Pick the right time of day. You're not putting all of yourself into it, and you're not going to bed only when you do this one thing. Like, you just got to relax into it. Yeah. Actually, another podcast that I do, that actually our Duke of Education's been on before, the Game & Watch podcast, I talked about my relationship with Cuphead. That was very much the same as this. I kind of had to limit myself to 20-minute stints to manage my sanity in order to be able to get close to finishing it. So I suggest that as well here if you need it.
Man, I struggle with time boxing myself in like that, because I always feel like when I get time to play, I have to play for my the whole time. Otherwise, I'm just wasting a day essentially. So
that's exactly why I played Sifu as much as I did without touching Elden Ring.
But there's something to like the Souls games where I probably spent 2 or 3 hours going back from trying to beat Margit, the first boss, and trying to beat this other boss, which Ben knows, who the guy with the sword that I was trying to get for the entire night. And I spent all night doing this, going back and forth between these bosses. But I didn't care that it really ate up all of my time. But like with Horizon, I dropped it down to very easy, like story mode, so I could blow through everything because I didn't care. I didn't want to waste my time with Horizon for some reason. But I feel like Elden Ring warrants my time more, and I'm able to fail more, and I don't care as much. It's weird. It's weird how that game, it just feels more important to me, so I can let it suck my time away. But like Horizon, I just want to blow through. It's more of a story. I feel like I want to feel like a superhero in that game, kind of like Uncharted. I play Uncharted on easy because I want to blow through it and just feel like James Bond.
This is where I think that, look, I'm going to admit to you all as well. I've got a teaching degree. I love teaching and learning and development and all that stuff. Video games are perfect for that because what Sifu and Dark Souls and Elden Ring, what they all do is, oh gosh, we've lost Ben. And he's back. What they all do is they make you use what they call a growth mindset. Like when you fail, you grow from failure and you continue to change and learn. But you don't want to have a growth mindset when you're looking to just relax. So that's why, we're tuned for these kinds of games because they're going to lend themselves to you wanting to constantly and continuously improve. And I think that's even the creator of Elden Ring has said that this week, whether it's to, try and cut the discourse in half about the difficulty of it and the availability by saying, we want to provide an experience that allows people to learn from failure and to grow and to get something out of it. I think he says joyous somewhere in there as well. But I think that's where we get that value from, Cole. I think we enjoy losing because we know there's a learning opportunity in there somewhere.
Yeah, but there's only on certain games that I'll have that mindset. You know what I mean? I don't know why certain games I'm like that with others, but yeah, I agree.
Makes you a good student. There's nothing to learn from Horizon Forbidden West, obviously. So you just breeze right through.
No, I just want to. I just want to breeze through, and I want the story on that game.
Not a single thing to learn. By the way, how far are you into Horizon, Cole?
Horizon, I'm far. I'm like 25 hours in. I played a lot the first few days that was released. I was off that whole week, and I didn't have the kids much, so I played a lot. I'm about 25 hours in. This is the most beautiful game I've ever played. And it feels good, and it's great, and I would be playing it more, but for Elden Ring, which happened. This is the second time this has happened.
Why does this keep happening?
Breath of the Wild sucks for Horizon, but we've made this joke before. Grand Theft Auto 6 is going to come out a week after Horizon 3.
Yeah, it's just, something will happen. Now I have a really important question that I think is going to be very divisive, and I'm sorry if I'm taking over this stuff because getting your guys' opinion on this stuff is really good because you're getting so far across all these new games. Horizon Forbidden West has reviewed really well. Everyone has proclaimed their enjoyment with it. But every conversation I've been privy to about it has always been, yeah, it's an amazing game. It's great. But the climbing is a bit weird, or Aloy talks too much, or, the combat is very much the same. The open world is tiring for me. I'm not sure if you, Ben, have had a chance to play it as well, but is that something you think about when you play it?
Cole is
so... Yeah. I mean,
I
actually think the climbing is really good in the game. I think it's awesome. It's a game where it's not like Breath of the Wild. You can't climb anything, but pretty much anything that looks like you could climb, I feel like you can climb it, and it's a lot better than the first Horizon. I feel like I couldn't climb anything unless it was very obviously marked. But someone just posted in chat Horizon Game of the Year so far. It was my Game of the Year for about 4 days. And then Elden Ring came out. Actually, to be honest with you, Witch Queen is those two right there are neck and neck, and Elden Ring beats those two for me. But back to your question. It just feels like more Horizon. And I mean, when I'm playing it, and that's been a common criticism, but when I'm playing it, I feel like I'm in Horizon 1. I feel like that could be on PlayStation 4 Pro. And I feel like it's just more of the same, which is not a bad thing. But I think the people why Elden Ring hit so hard, hit so good, is because we're all tired of this open world formula. Like everyone's tired of it, and it's obvious. It was obvious in 2017 with Breath of the Wild, but no one really caught on to it. And now we get it with Elden Ring, and it's game of the generation. It's one of the best games of all time. On OpenCritic, it's ranked as the best game ever. Metacritic, it's tied for 3. You know,
Yeah. Well, let's
just jump into it. I mean,
let's officially segue into the discussion therein. Elden Ring has been getting, it has gotten incredible reviews. The other Dukes talked about that a little bit last week. Frankly, absurdly incredible reviews. It like you said, Cole, 97 on OpenCritic and 96 on Metacritic, I think right now, last I checked. It was incredibly surprising to me that From Software was able to pull off such a critical darling here. This is not.
and remember, we had several podcasts where we debated whether they could pull it off or not.
Right.
And our thesis was, if they can, it will be one of the greatest games ever made. But we just didn't know really if they could.
Yeah. I think you're absolutely right. So I struggle with where to begin here, because there are the obvious ways we could tackle this question of what's setting Elden Ring apart in people's minds right now. What is putting it into another echelon in the way that people are thinking about this game, and whether or not that's really warranted in our experiences with the game. Aside from, that's kind of the commentary conversation. Aside from our own personal experiences with the game, how are we feeling about the game? Where are we at right now, and how much is it sucking each of us in? Maybe we should start there, because we've each been playing it. Matt, how are you liking or not liking Elden Ring right now?
Well, if my masochism couldn't be derived from my time with Sifu,
Right.
I am enjoying my time with it, but I know in myself I need to take my time with a game like this. It's very easy to dive into something like this, especially with all the fervor around it and people saying it's the most amazing game ever, you have to buy this and play it, not being sure whether it's for you or not. But I'm poking little bits here or there. There's definitely some souls in it that I do enjoy. You can jump as a bit of a change, which has kind of changed the combat a little bit. The verticality is kind of a bit different. But as I mentioned just before the show, it was very Dark Soulsy until maybe a couple of hours before we started recording here, where things started to open up a little bit and things start to get a little bit freaky. Without trying to be too spoilery about anything, I don't think I could. I think I've got 6 hours in it already. I was going for a run around and I'd gotten my ass handed to me by a boss or two, of which there are many. There's a lot of stuff out there that can just, hand your ass to you. But there was a little dude walking around with a sword. I was like, yeah, some easy runes that I can spend on some stuff later. I'll just hit him. Hit him once, and he turned into a massive bear.
That's awesome.
Was like 10 times the size of me. And then, and then I died.
Well, let me tell you this. If that was in Horizon, he would have been a question mark on the map. So you wouldn't have been shocked at all. You would think, okay, something weird's going to happen. Here's a question mark on the map. This was just something you ran across in the world, and it happened. And I haven't heard of that. I haven't seen that. I mean,
no, this is this is interesting that this is your case here, because this is one of the things that I am really liking about this game is these kinds of anecdotal conversations and stories and the discoveries that other people are having with this game, because I have no idea what you're talking about.
I know, and I'm
sure it exists, but I
you.
have not seen it, and I think I'm 30 hours into the game at this point. So I think the tutorial section is very well tread for me at this point.
But the most common story you'll hear from the review outlets and stuff is some chest somewhere that transports you to some section of the map that,
Yeah, and that's happened to me. And that was spoiled from a few reviews, because I remember hearing that.
And Alfredo, I think, also had a similar experience. I missed that entirely. I don't know if I think I've come across some trap chests, but I've been able to roll out of the way of them before they got me. So I have not experienced that being way over my head because I'm in a place that's 5 levels too high for me or whatever. Which it seems to be what Alfredo's problem was yesterday or last week. Yeah,
But it's all surprise.
Exactly. Right? Right. It is.
Like the player experience is going to be, everyone's story is going to be different with this game.
So I'm surprised, Ben, you hadn't found that because we were both around the same area, and I got transported to a whole new area, a whole new portion of the map. And for some reason, I forgot that I could hit the map and just go back to a site of grace. So I just got on my horse and I just rode all the way through and like saw this crazy stuff. And I was going through this pink land. It was like the sky was red. I think it's to the east.
Yeah. I'm in there. I'm in that area currently. Though I got there, I progressed there naturally.
Yeah.
I discovered fast travel today. I was like at the bonfire. I'm like, how do I move to a different? Okay, I can't do it. I mean, grace, whatever. But yeah, there's just so much to discover, and it doesn't tutorialize any of it.
Well, it's fun. Like me and Ben, we for about 4 nights we kind of hopped on voice chat and we would just play. And whenever someone needed help, we would hop in and help them. But a lot of it was just we were playing our separate games, and I would be like, "Yeah," he would kind of tell me where something was I was looking for, so I'd go looking for it, and then I'd stumble across something else. I'd be like, "Oh, did you find this? There's like this weird like uh museum looking place or whatever." And you go in there and you take a elevator down, and I was like, Ben, I'm still riding this elevator. And it was like 2 minutes went by and I'm like, dude, I'm still on this elevator, it's going down. And I got to the bottom and I was like, the starry world, and I was like, dude, you got to come check this out, it's unbelievable. I don't know where I'm in, a whole new area. And then he comes down there, we check it out, and then we
try to make our way through it, but it's way too high level. So our faces smashed in. It's like, okay, we'll come back here later.
Yeah, but it's just all these little things, and like discovery is just unbelievable.
And you don't get that with Dark Souls, do you?
Well, I think you do. I think
sometimes
you get it in microcosm, and it's some of the things that are really interesting, and like some of the novel experiences in the Souls games are to some degree missing in this game, where you have the very kind of crafted levels that loop in on themselves to where you progress very far through an area, and then you come back and you find a ladder and you kick it down. You're like, oh wait, oh shit, this is the place where I started this whole loop from. I'm all the way back here, and that like light bulb feeling of it does, it all connects. Now it's all coming together.
Which Bloodborne was incredible at that.
Yeah.
Even areas wrapping in on themselves. Like I remember specifically, there's that one in the Forbidden Forest. You find that underground huge cave, and it winds up coming back up in like Esophagus Clinic, like the main starting area or something. I was like, oh my god, it's incredible.
That one's crazy. I actually feel like this is something that has been part of From Software's games less and less since Demon Souls. I feel like they never did it as well as they did in Demon Souls. And the reason they did it so well in Demon Souls is because they didn't have very many bonfires. You only got a bonfire when you killed a boss in Demon Souls.
Mm-hmm.
So they were very few and far between. For every level, there's only like 4 bosses. So there's basically 4 plus the starting bonfire. Which means that most of your progression through the level is finding shortcuts that allow you to progress through the level quicker than you previously could. Which means that they are by necessity much more interconnected in that way, where you're finding repeated checkpoints that are in the form of shortcuts that loop into other shortcuts, so that you can like bypass large sections of the level once you've progressed a good way through it. That was something that I was really impressed with playing Demon Souls on PS5 that I have not. There are those moments that you're talking about, Cole, but they're not as commonplace as they were in Demon Souls, and I feel like they're almost missing in Elden Ring. I will say that I have not been through many of the major dungeons. I did the castle with the one that Margit kind of
Stormvale.
Yeah, Stormvale. Thank you. and that Stormveil is very much a Dark Souls level, and it does have some of that that shortcutty kind of thing. It is quite interconnected, but it's also confined, so it can be. But the majority of my experience with the game, either in the dungeons or in the open world, it does not kind of feed into that idea. Have you guys been experiencing that as well?
Yeah, I missed that, and that was kind of my hope. But like you said, I'm kind of hoping it's still there because I haven't even really explored Stormveil the whole way. But I'm hoping that the rest of the dungeons are more like that, the looping maze like dungeons. I think we lost Ben.
It's all right. He's fiddling. I'm sure.
I'm still here. My camera is just gone.
Okay. Yeah, I miss that like crazy. I really do. Like,
But
I hope
I'll
that.
tell you why, though. I think you miss it because it felt safe. Like you always knew that there was.
It was
you'd
that
go
relief.
here. Yeah, you'd end up back where you started again. But with Elden Ring, it doesn't happen the same way.
Mhm.
It's you kind of have to wrestle with your spatial location and kind of cross your fingers that when you go into this cave, you're going to end up in a spot where you expect on the other side, or you just hightail it back out the entrance again because you're like, no, I don't want to.
Yeah.
I'm not
One
ready
thing
yet.
I'm not doing is I'm not like with Bloodborne specifically. I would push it, and then I'd have so many blood echoes, and there's always that question: should I push farther, or should I go back and turn them in? I feel like I'm not doing that as much with this game, and I don't know why, but I'm not
It's because there's sites of grace everywhere.
everywhere.
I mean, they're all over the place.
But I'm losing them. But I'm losing my stuff more than ever.
I feel the same. Like I don't care about keeping the runes as much
I
as
don't either. I don't care as
would.
much either. I don't know why. It's
Yeah.
weird.
I think they're easy to get. Like there's
maybe so.
pickups, breaking skulls in the map that allow you to get items you
Mhm.
crush and you get 200.
Yeah,
Once I got, like,
exactly. Yeah.
3,000 at the start. Easy.
I tell you what, I did get. I found that the Bloodborne sidestep, and have equipped it to one of my weapons, and it is incredible.
Yeah, the Ash of War.
The Ash of War. It's called, I don't know what it's called, Dash or something, and it's awesome. But anyway, so to your original question, Ben, what like kind of our overall feeling is on the game? Is that pretty much what you asked at the very beginning?
Yeah, how's it hitting you?
It's incredible. I think it's one of the best games of all time. Because Bloodborne is I'll go ahead and lay it out there. My favorite games of all time is Grand Theft Auto 5, Rocket League, and Bloodborne. And this has fallen in, I would say, my top 5. I don't know quite if it's going to be. Bloodborne was my first Souls game, so it's always special. But this game is like, and it does wear off. I think me and Ben, we talked about this when we were playing. The surprising feeling and that romantic stage at the first few days is worn off a little bit, but that's with any game. I mean, when I first played the Ocarina of Time, I mean that eventually does happen, but it doesn't mean the game is any less. It's not like the game is worse for that. But the fact is, like, everything is a surprise. You never know what you're going to get. You never know when you're going to run into a boss. You're rewarded everywhere you go. Everywhere exploring, you get a smithing stone, or you'll find a site of grace, or a new weapon, or a new boss. With like Breath of the Wild, and I know everybody compares it to Breath of the Wild, but it was all the same. Like to me, there was nothing special in Breath of the Wild. It was a very empty world with the only thing you could find was those Korok with those little seeds. Well, I forget what they're called, the seeds, and then you had all the shrines that you do. There's about 3 or 4 different shrines, and the enemy variety in Breath of the Wild, it was the same enemy everywhere with those little goblin guys. Like there's a few different biome areas, but I didn't see what was so special about. Obviously, Breath of the Wild's special. I mean, I can't say it's not. It's one of my top 10 games probably ever. But the reward for exploring in this game is unmatched, and the sense of exploration. The sense of exploration too is like nothing's on the map. Everything you find, you discover yourself. That's really, really, that's awesome. And it trusts the player to figure it out for yourself.
I have a bad habit of abstracting things. You'll see it a lot when I use metaphors, but I think you've sold this as the TikTok of Soulsborne. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah.
Like it's constantly rewarding you. There's like small things. It's always changing. You can pick it up and drop it whenever you want. Like,
That's
is this
right.
them? Are they feeding the public what they want by making
I
the game the way it is?
Yeah, I will say this may be a controversial opinion. I have not uh, looked it up to see if people agree with me, but I feel like this is Dark Souls easy mode. Elden Ring. This game is way easier than any previous Souls game for a number of
And I
reasons.
think it's easier because you have the option to leave and go somewhere else.
It's
Like,
not the only reason. It's not the only reason it's easier.
well, with the summons, and then you have
Yeah.
the weapons are stronger with all the things you can add to them, and you have summon the dogs and all that stuff. So yeah, I agree, but I don't think it's easy mode. I think it's more like Dark Souls, a little bit more accessible mode.
Dark Souls DLC.
I
Pay
think
$10 and
yeah,
get dogs.
yeah, I think it goes farther than because I mean there is so much Dark Souls in this game. I mean it is not.
But Ben,
You
think
look
about
at
me. We have played. Me and you both have played so many Dark Souls. How many times did it take us to beat Margit? Like forever, and we had to do it with each other and other players.
Yeah,
It was tough. That was a tough boss.
it was. Margit is definitely a skill gate for sure, and a level gate.
Well,
But
and Godric too.
yeah, Godric was tricky too. I will say I have not banged my head against the wall with anything in Elden Ring the way I did with the with the Chalice dungeons and Bloodborne. But
But that was
we're not
in-game
quite there yet.
content, though. Yeah.
Yeah, it's
No,
different content.
I agree. That's some of the most frustrating times of my life. And by that point, you were a master of Bloodborne. And when you get
Yeah.
to that stage and you're still can't beat a boss, it's crazy.
So
I-
here would be my response to you, Ben, with what you're saying, it being easy Dark Souls. I think it's not easy mode, but I think they've got like a deck of sliders in front of them, and for each of the games, they're like dialing one down and dialing another one up. Because from what I've seen with Margit, the hard thing is the timing. Like it's very rare for you to dodge effectively because the what do you call it? The wind up for a lot of those moves. Spoilers for anyone who hasn't tackled that yet, but the wind up for all those moves is really hard to pattern match, and the wind up can vary. And I found that with a lot of the enemies in Elden Ring too. So
they definitely try
might
to fake
be-
you out.
Yeah.
Yeah,
And when they come down with the one big hit, you come across with the left hand, like right behind, or like a backhand right after it where you're not expecting it at all.
exactly. And
The reason it
blocking,
definitely
I found.
the reason it
Yeah.
definitely still is easy mode is because there is and spoilers, but stop listening to us if you don't want spoilers. There is something within the first section of the game that makes the battle with Margit significantly easier that you find somewhere else in the open world.
Yeah, but you have to go out searching for that.
Yes, but it's not far. It's it's within the opening section of the game. So I don't think this is kind of what I'm saying. Margit is not difficult because this game is incredibly difficult. Margit is difficult because they are trying to stop you from doing the rest of the game until you give exploring in the open world in the first section enough time. So they're trying to keep sending you back saying, hey, this is an open world game. Don't forget, go do the open world stuff. Stop trying to fight this boss that is too difficult for you right now.
Don't you think that's good design though?
Yeah, it's good design.
say.
I'm not saying so. I hope I have not given the impression that I think Dark Souls on easy mode is a bad thing. I don't.
Oh no,
It's the right
I-
decision for this game.
I think it is the right decision for this game, and I think this game is better and stronger as a result. To get into the on a previous episode, I talked about like one of the 4 conversations that we have to have every single fucking year in the games industry, and this is one of the conversations we have to have every single fucking year in the games industry about whether Dark Souls should have an easy mode
Yeah.
and whether games that are made to be hard should have easy modes. I'm not somebody who thinks that Dark Souls needs to have an easy mode, and I think that we often cross streams when we talk about accessibility of a game versus the difficulty of a game
in that very polarized way, like easy,
exactly.
medium, hard.
There are tons of ways that Dark Souls could be made more accessible without touching the difficulty, and I think From should engage on those levels. They should look at Naughty Dog as an example of how to engage on those levels, and then there are ways that they could broaden their audience by making the game less challenging. And those things I don't think are the right tree to bark up. However, they have found a way to make the game significantly easier, in my opinion, Elden Ring, significantly easier, without significantly compromising the experience, I think. One of those ways you mentioned, Cole, the summons. Always being able to summon in an NPC to every single, but many encounters is a game-changing addition. The breadth of magic options in the game. Magic has always been the secret easy mode of Dark Souls, because if you can fight with your enemies at range, you are in way less danger of taking damage. So the breadth of magic options and the number of classes that have magic available from the get-go, I think, are also a nod toward an easier experience. Not only that, but Matt, you mentioned that none of this is tutorialized. It isn't compared to most games, but compared to Dark Souls games, I've seen more pop-ups telling you explicitly what things do and how they work than in any Souls game. On the screen,
the load screens, right?
No,
There's
not the load screen. In the first 5 minutes of the game, or sorry, first 30 minutes of the game, let's say, even outside of the tutorial room, you're getting like pretty frequent pop-ups that are like, okay, when you do this, X happens. That's called this mechanic. When you sit at a site of grace, you're blah 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 blah, and the level resets. Like, these are things that are just not explained in the previous games, or they're explained in the hints on the ground that you're meant to opt into. But in Elden Ring, they're put in front of the player, and the player can skip through them, but they stop the flow of the game, and you're able to read them. So these are explicit ways in which they are tutorializing the basic systems of the game that they never bothered to do in the previous games. I think the combination of these things, in addition to the fact that you can walk away at any time and go pursue other objectives, makes the whole of Elden Ring way easier than any previous From game.
What if secretly they knew that this was going to appeal to the Dark Souls player? They would have previous experience. They would come in, and they're probably the ones mashing through these because I don't need this. That's a bonfire. I get souls. I hit things. I dodge. I roll. I parry. That all works. But to make this accessible to a larger audience that doesn't have the Dark Souls background, which luckily for them that they've done this, because it has, like, the entire planet is buying this thing, that's like bringing up the light level in Destiny. Like, it brings everyone back to an even keel, so that the jumping off point for players who haven't done a Dark Souls before are able to get themselves into the game more.
Yeah, this is their massive, like, coming out party. Like, this is they're going mainstream. They're getting big time. They're gonna sell, 5 times what they've sold any of their other Souls games, and they know it. Everybody's coming in on this one, and they're being a little more accessible, a little more easy, and I think it's going to reach more players because of it.
Definitely. But I think that the design of this game, like you guys mentioning the design just then, just opened it up to me in a different way with the way I've been experiencing the game so far. It's open world. Something annoys you or you can't do it, you run off and you try something else. But today alone, I have run to, I had a crack at Margit. I was like, okay, I've had a go at that. I know I can't quite do it yet. I'm going to go for a wander around and see what I can do. I try to run across the lake. I get a dragon. I run to, I think it's the Lookout Tower. There's a massive dude that looks like the robot from Thor, the original Thor movie, firing a bow and arrow from like kilometers across the map. I'm like, not sure about that yet. I'm going to go the other way and see what's going on over there. So it's like, it's kind of wrangling me in. And if I did like an all-out view of the map and like put those little markers on the map that said, okay, can't go here yet, can't go here yet, can't go here yet, it'd probably be like a rounded bottleneck to one area that would tell me where I can actually go, where I should explore next. And odds are there's going to be something there that I can actually attack and kill, unless I want to go full Dark Souls on it and just drop all my clothes and retch my way through every boss and hate myself for it. But
right.
the game design aspect of that the back end stuff that isn't clear, that isn't removing. Oh, lost call as well. That isn't removing and adding things from the map via icons or whatever it might be. Like the real subconscious design. I think that might be one of the elements of this that really pushes it to one of the best games of all time.
I think you're right about that, and I think that this is something that From Software has always been pretty good at. They're pretty good at nudging you in the direction they want you to go with carrots and sticks, and not with waypoints. Because what you're describing could be in a different game, in a game maybe like Horizon. I haven't played Horizon, so I don't want to poop on it or anything. But as the counter example on everyone's mind, maybe in a game like Horizon, they just give you the waypoint to tell you the way to go, and you explore through the open world on the way to the waypoint. But when you're exploring through the open world the way that you're describing, Matt, think of all the things that you're kind of cataloging in your mind. Like, okay, I'll come back there later. I'll do this later. I'll think about how to get by this while I go north instead. You are building out a coherent sense of the world as a real space in doing
exactly
that.
And not relying on icons and
Yeah.
dots on the map and all this. Like I compared this in our last, I think it was off air discussion on this. It reminds me of when you put your GPS on and you go somewhere and you have no idea how you got there and you have no idea what you passed, where you went, as opposed to Ben give me directions to his house from across town and, hey, go to the Arby's, take a right, go past the mall, you'll see the park, boom. You're taking the world more.
Yeah. You're forced to look around you. You're forced to position yourself based on landmarks and try to have a spatial understanding of yourself in the world and your objectives in the world. And doing that subtle change, and this is something that I mentioned to you, Cole, while we were playing. I was like, I feel like so many open world games, I mentioned Ubisoft games in particular. I was like, I feel like so many open world games have this already. They have it. They just
take it off the map.
They just decide to allow you to not think in this way about their world.
Yeah.
And
I think it's to detriment. I don't think it makes the experience better, because you want to know where things are. There's so much dadgum stuff in Ubisoft games and Horizon that just let the player find it. Let you walk through an actual port, and instead of, because I mean, I'm guilty of this when the game presents me with it, and people will say, "Oh, you can just turn off all the markers in the." I'm just not going to do that. Like if the option's there, you just turn it on. But like walking through like a port city in Assassin's Creed and not looking at this map with all these dots and everything and a guideline telling you exactly where to go to, and you're just busting through it. Imagine just walking through and taking in the beautiful world, looking at people, and all of a sudden this NPC just starts talking to you and you just experience it. It sends you on a quest line. You know, it's
Assassin's Creed Odyssey.
Yeah.
Was really bad for that.
Yeah, but all they have to do is just take off the dots. I mean, take off all this crap, and I really think they got a better product. Like if Horizon had all that stuff taken off and it was all about exploration, and like I noticed there was a path and it had signposts on it, and it pointed to one city was this way and another city was that way or whatever. I mean, imagine if that's how you had to navigate it. You literally had to take the dirt road to the north and read the actual sign and just be a smarter player, you know, and engulf yourself in this world and just head that way, head towards the snowy mountain peak, and you'll find the town, you know.
There are other games that do this well. And I personally think that the Bethesda games tend to do this fairly well. Even though they give you waypoints, they don't clutter your map with icons. If you think about it, the icons populate on your map based on places that you have been. So it's like in Elden Ring, where you're unlocking these sites of grace that are fast travel points. It's the same thing in Bethesda game. In a Bethesda game, you walk through the area, and then it's like you are in this place, and now you can fast travel here, and now there's an icon on the map. But none of that information existed before. Outside of that, it's basically you get a quest, and the quest will give you an objective marker. And if you don't have any fast travel points within a certain radius, then you have to travel through the world to that place. So I think the Bethesda games kind of ride the line between the Ubisoft checklist method of doing things and the actual you can live in the world way of doing it that Elden Ring is, to a degree that is more suited to a hardcore game than Elden Ring is. I think part of the reason that some of this is acceptable to us is because of the expectation of repetition that we have with Souls games, and the expectation of being lost and not really knowing exactly where you're going, but trusting that not even trusting,
No,
but
I know what you're saying.
yeah, having this feeling in your gut, like just
Yeah.
keep putting one foot forward until you find your next safe haven, that kind of thing.
Yeah,
That's
it's going to
baked
be,
in.
it's going to be this obtuse game where like
Right.
it's awkward and stuff. But like, how would people respond if the next Assassin's Creed came out and they just treated it like this and they just ripped everything out, no mini map, no nothing. I mean, would
we
it
know
go over
that's not
well,
gonna
or would everybody just be pissed off because it's their expectation that all the icons are going to be there and that's what they're used to doing?
The executives would be pissed off because that's literally why those games have ended up that way. They've said, okay, this tiny little vocal minority of this market is saying there's not enough icons. I don't know where to go. I've got kids and a job and I don't have time to enjoy this environment. Give me what I want. So they say, bam, markers everywhere. You know exactly where you need to go at any one time. Go for it. They pander to the masses without doing the work. Whereas games like Elden Ring, they do the work to do effective game design and give the same feeling, but still giving you a little bit of what you need.
Yeah.
And part of the reason Bethesda, I think, does it really well is because they have grown with games across decades to make this stuff work. Because the first example I thought of a game with a world where it doesn't give you much guidance, but it kind of guides you a little bit with the environment is Morrowind.
Yeah.
That was an amazing game for that, to the point where they put tricks in it. So you'd start at a dock, you could walk one way or the other. There was also a secret scroll of acrobatics you could get that plus 1,000, and you could jump from where you were on the map all the way to the other side of the map if you found it.
That game was so breakable.
Yeah, it was great. And you knew you had to go right into the middle to win. Or eventually you knew. So that meant it was kind of like a pizza, or a donut rather. You're always working towards the middle, so you knew where you were going. Like, it's, in terms of world design, it was amazing.
That's kind of like Breath of the Wild, right? Too. You got to get to the middle area.
Yeah.
You got to go to Hyrule.
Okay, so that's games learning from each other, which is a good thing.
No, yeah. And those are some of the best games ever. Like, when are they going to learn from this? When are the other games going to learn from this?
I'm not sure that this is a design by committee thing in terms of the way that Ubisoft does it. I have a feeling that this is a and it's obviously it's not just Ubisoft, because we're also talking about Horizon Forbidden West in the same vein. This is a focus tested experience. This is a play tested experience that is trying to sand off as many rough edges as possible to create a palatable experience to the widest possible audience. That's the intent of these games. It's not the intent of From Software's games. It has never been. So even though Elden Ring is the one that I think has the broadest appeal, we're working from an incredibly niche game that it's a very niche game that has a very big niche. That's the kind of the idea. So just because Elden Ring is selling incredibly well doesn't mean that this is like an experience that the majority of people who play games want to have. But
and that's my biggest gripe with
but they don't know. But no one knows what it's like without this. They've never been given a game. The only game that they've been given that's similar to this, it went over extremely well, and it's Breath of the Wild. So we've never even really tried to give the people this game. Like, the gaming industry never really had the balls to give people this. They did with Breath of the Wild, and it was an absolute hit.
Yeah, I think. Go ahead, Matt.
I don't know. I'm trying to think. Like, there's a lot of different things that you can rest the success in inverted commas at the moment, because it still remains to be seen over time. But the success of this game, you could rest on a lot of things. I think the Dark Souls aspect of this is going to be where the success is, more so than the open world aspect of your Breaths of the Wilds. But trying to find a game that does something similar in this space to what FromSoft does with a different perspective is really hard. Like, I think FromSoft does all that stuff really well in a coalesced package because they've got the pedigree behind it. Whereas you've got your Sifus that abstract the methodology of what your brain does and puts it in a martial arts game. Or you've got your Hollow Knights, which is about the collection of souls and failing upwards as well. But it's not an open world, it's a 2D platformer. And like, it's a really hard conversation, I think, to have with this game. But even Sekiro is kind of different.
I think it is the open world. My opinion, I think the open world is what makes this game special and what puts this over the top. Because if it had just been another Dark Souls 4, it wouldn't have reached this level of popularity, and it probably wouldn't have scored a 97 or 96. I think this exploration, this open world, pushes this game to that next echelon.
A lot of people have been comparing the open world to Breath of the Wild, and I think there's some similarity there, but there is another game that comes to mind first and foremost for me. Like I mentioned the Bethesda games earlier, and those are the ones that I've been thinking of. But the game that comes to mind for me that is
give us a hint. Give us a hint. Let us try to guess this.
I think I know
so.
What it is.
I'm talking about. No, I'm talking about maybe Red Dead is a good example, but I'm talking about the coherence of the world design and the ability to play it without a map marker and actually have a followable experience. Even though in the case of this game, there are lots of map markers and they cluttered up your map like crazy. You could have turned them all off, and many people play this way, and been able to play the game for the most part fairly successfully.
The open world
Spider-Man?
game?
Maybe Spider-Man. I'm talking about The Witcher 3, actually.
Oh, yeah.
Because this...
Yeah, you're right.
The world is designed in such a way that you can follow it just by looking at a paper map and by looking at road signs and by talking to people. When a quest giver gives you a quest, at least a main quest for the most part in The Witcher 3, they tell you where to go. Most games don't do that. Most games say, here, I marked it on your map, and then you get an icon on your map. In The Witcher 3, it would be like, oh, go down to the bog and take a right at the crooked tree, and you'll find the witch in the sewer. That kind of thing.
Perfect.
So there was a focus on the integrity of the experience, in that this is a real world where real people live, and they have to be able to navigate it in some way. You're a player, so you get the benefit of this map that we are going to shower with question marks. And that's the counterpoint to what I'm saying here, because The Witcher 3 is one of the worst in terms of map clutter. It's all over the place on that map.
I think it's mostly because the icons stay, though. Like, there's a lot that just sit there and they're just gray because you've done them.
Yep.
Like, you don't need them.
and that's the checklist stuff creeping in, right? That's the checklist mindset. Yeah. But the open world itself was created with that level of design integrity, I think, that many open worlds lack, but Elden Ring leans on. And
don't you think
that's a unique thing about it?
It's a bit of confidence too in the game designers. Like they're confident that you'll be able to navigate this world without all this stuff.
I really want to say that what the argument you made for The Witcher 3 there, in comparison to Elden Ring, it's not irrelevant, but I think they took what they wanted to out of that and not the rest. Like, you've got your paper map. They've avoided the icons, which was a learned lesson. But if you try to orient yourself or have people tell you where to go in Elden Ring, it doesn't happen. And the world in itself, when you look out upon it, is completely nonsensical. So learning from what The Witcher 3 did I think that's why this game is so good as well, because those designers with all of that pedigree already, they've been smart enough to take the growth mindset, they learn from failure, you've got the combat, and then you take the little bits that contribute to the vision that they had while still aligning to their vision.
You know what other
That has
game
to be
does this too?
what
The
game?
Ocarina of Time. There was no map markers in Ocarina of Time. It's one of the greatest games of all time. Breath of the Wild, one of the greatest
Mhm.
games of all time. Witcher 3, one of the greatest games of all time. They all have this sense of exploration to it.
Hmm.
I will say one thing that's grating on me about Elden Ring and is grating on me about many open world games. They all outstay their welcome. They all do. They're all too long. There's always too much to do.
You feel like that with Elden Ring right
In
now?
my opinion, I'm beginning to feel that way with Elden Ring.
But you've been playing it 5 hours every day, so you're getting a little tired.
Part of this is potentially the way that I've paced it for myself. I
And I
won't
think
deny that.
that's a common story across the review from games outlets and stuff. Some people have come out and said, this game is ruined for me now because I had to review it in a week and clock up 70 hours with the game. And it's different to if I just took my time with it.
I get that. I get that. What I am experiencing, there is plenty of novelty in this game. I think there's probably more novelty in every hour than in most games. But there is not a sufficient novelty to mundanity ratio in this game to keep it feeling fresh as you go through it. Because
So you're seeing the
it does,
treadmill.
yeah, it does begin to get familiar. You begin to see and feel the places in which they are repeating things, even though there is not a checklist for you to go through per se. There are still those checklist items distributed throughout the map. Each of them give you interesting experiences and potentially good loot, that kind of stuff. But it doesn't like help shield their artifice. I'm especially talking about the dungeons.
The
There are
little
other,
the mini underground dungeons
yeah,
that are similar that we talked about were probably procedurally generated. Those,
yeah, they feel most akin to the Chalice dungeons in Bloodborne, where you have to find a lever to open the door, that kind of thing.
I still think they're very cool to have, and you don't have to go to them. You know, so where do you sit? Because you kind of asked us your overall view. Is this one of the greatest games of all time in your opinion, or you can't say that yet, or what do you think?
It's hard to say. So one of the other things that I think lets me down about Elden Ring is that it is so much a Dark Souls game. I mean, this is really, truly Dark Souls 3 in an open world. Everything that is new about this game is in the open world for the most part. There is not enough. I mean, they didn't have to reinvent the wheel, but FromSoft, ever since Demon Souls, has taken this kind of if it ain't broke, don't fix it mentality with their core gameplay. It's great, but it wears thin, especially for somebody who's played. I haven't even played all of these games. I haven't played Dark Souls 3 or Sekiro. But they're leaning a little bit too much into Dark Souls with this game. I think. I think if we were looking at, if we were talking about a different studio going from, if there was this much Uncharted in The Last of Us, we would have talked about The Last of Us differently. There's a lot of Uncharted in The Last of Us, but The Last of Us is also a far cry from Uncharted, and Elden Ring is not a far cry from Dark Souls in its essence. In its packaging, it is. It is Dark Souls 3 plus. It is a redistribution of the ideas inherent in Dark Souls 3. But it is not, those ideas are not themselves different, I think.
It's Dark Souls 4 with an open world.
This is my main criticism with it too, that I think everything around before anyone gets to this game, there is going to be someone that tells them this isn't a Dark Souls game, but it is at the core of it.
Yeah,
It's a Dark Souls game.
I always said that my dream game would be like a Dark Souls game that's not so dark. Like that had a little bit more light, little fantasy, like mixed with a Zelda kind of like with the horse, maybe, with the open world with some greenery, and they gave it to me. So I do see what you're saying, but they added so much. Like I feel like kind of what you're saying is how I feel about Horizon. It's just, well, then again, that's the same franchise. It's a sequel, so this is supposed to be something else and something new. But but I feel like every From Software game I almost look at as a sequel to me, even if it's from Demon Souls to Dark Souls 3 to Bloodborne to Sekiro. But see, they did.
I do think Sekiro is the outlier here because
and Bloodborne is too a little bit. They switched up their style for Bloodborne a lot, and they're it's a lot quicker, faster combat. But yeah, Sekiro is a lot different. I mean, I see what you're saying.
I think that the main part of this, at this point in our discussion at least, it has to be that whether this is the best game of all time or not, there are going to be people for whom this is their best game of all time.
Yeah.
But not everyone is a Cole or a Matt or a Ben.
Yeah.
And I think the thing that may come out over time is that a lot of people might be disappointed with this game because they were sold it differently. And I'm just saying that for the sake of saying it, really. I don't know what that means for the rest. I don't know if that means everyone goes, oh, FromSoft is BS. They make games that are super hard. I hate them. Because the rest of the world told them they need to play this game because it's 10 out of 10s all over the place. We'll just have to wait and see how time goes.
I will say one of the negative things for me is the graphics just aren't impressive at all.
And the performance, we haven't even talked about.
And the performance is bad. Like I feel like
it's downright bad. Yeah,
it's bad. It's bad, and I never even care. I never even recognize frame rate drops. Really, they never bother me. But here they do. There's lots of pop in. The grass pops in on mine all the time. Enemies pop in from far away. It's all that, and it looks like an early PS4 game. Like it does not look that good to me.
I personally think
PS3?
that Bloodborne looks better than this game.
Yeah,
because it has a more coherent
style,
cohesive art style.
Yeah, I do too. So that to me is the downside.
All corridors.
It's just that's true too. It's boxing you in, so you can't get unflattering angles the way you can in Elden Ring.
Yeah,
which are all over the place.
Yeah.
Now there are some pretty angles, and I'm looking at stuff, but I'm not looking at things like I was in Bloodborne at all. Maybe it gets a little bit better, but I mean, I don't know. It's crazy that it is the best game of all time, and the graphics are really subpar. But I'm more of a gameplay guy anyway. But yeah, that's kind of a bummer.
Not the destination.
Look, yeah, exactly. And Demon Souls looks so good. So going from Demon Souls to this, golly,
knowing what a PS5 FromSoft game should look like in the Demon Souls remake and how it should play. Yeah. That game was locked 60 from day one. It's a technical marvel. It is an incredible technical achievement, that game. I don't want to unfavorably compare these games, but all this said about Elden Ring to the negative, I have not been this engrossed in a game in quite a while. So I have to give it that. I am totally sucked in, and I am having a great time despite the rough edges for me. This might be my favorite experience with a Souls game since Demon Souls, which was my first Demon Souls on PS5, which was my first major foray into a Souls game.
And that's not to be
I think I'm enjoying myself more than Bloodborne. I think I'm enjoying myself more than Dark Souls, and I think I'm enjoying myself more than Dark Souls 2. Those are the other three that I've played in the series.
Okay.
So really, you're kind of sitting on board with it's one of the greatest games ever because you love that series, right?
I do love the series, but I never would have rated any of the Souls games in my top 5 games.
Would you say top 10?
Maybe. I'd have to think about it.
So that would be in the echelon of top games of all time.
Yeah.
It is crazy because we rarely get this, y'all. I mean, like, I've been gaming for a long time. I'm 36, and like, for a game to come out and score this high, it's just rare. And it's
Yeah,
rare
it
for
is.
games to live up to it's rare for games to come up, live up to the hype. And this one did live up to the hype for the most part. Like, and this game was hyped beyond belief. And it's rare for
Mm.
games to come out like this, and it's happened a handful. I can name a handful of games that have came out that I thought were really monumental releases, and they lived up to their hype, and this is one of them. So I think it's something
GTA
to
5 would be
celebrate.
one.
Oh yeah,
Right?
absolutely. Yeah, GTA 5 for me, Red Dead, Witcher 3. I don't know. It's hard
Where's
for me.
Cyberpunk?
See,
Why
yeah,
isn't Cyberpunk on your list?
it is not. But like, this is why I play games, for these really big hype releases, and hoping they deliver, and you get all excited for it. And it just reminds me of being a kid. Like, you get all excited for a game, and for when you're a child, I feel like things live up to the hype more often than not, just because I don't know, you're just excited about everything. The glass is always
It's a
half
new
full.
experience.
It's like going to you ever go to a movie with a kid, and they're like, "That's my favorite movie I've ever seen." You know,
Star Wars Episode 1. Amazing.
Yep, that
yeah,
was certainly my favorite movie when I was 3 years old.
Yeah.
The Duke of Anime in the chat says Elden Ring is the best game since Knack 2.
Oh
So
my!
I think we should leave the Elden Ring discussion there. And
I will agree with him, though, that Sekiro is a bigger innovation than Elden Ring. I think it's a much further throw. And it's the kind of game that I look for. Like, I go full woo-woo with this stuff. I'm like,
Right.
if I have a great experience with a game, it doesn't matter if it rated 10 out of 10. In fact, invariably, my favorite games are the ones that don't rate well, because my experience was my own. Final Fantasy X.
Wait a second.
Glad,
You
glad
said
Alfredo's not here.
no. Did you say that's one of your favorite games of all time?
Yeah, man.
Yeah, me too. Absolutely, I'm right there with you. It's one of the best. Me and Alfredo had a big old falling out over that.
Oh no, yeah,
I love it.
Well,
It was my first Final Fantasy game. I played it when it came out. It was great.
me too. But A Semblance is another one that you guys probably have never heard of, or I mentioned it as a comment on a previous episode, I think. But amazing game. That the guy who made that is going to be making another one soon. It's coming out on the Epic Store. For me, the internal experience is the one that I take away the most. And if I look at Elden Ring at the end and think, yeah, this is innovated for me. It's not my favorite game of all time. But if I come away and say, Elden Ring changed me for the better,
Yeah,
then
and
I'm happy.
and this is what. So my most hyped game this year. There's two of them. It's probably split between Elden Ring and Starfield. And that's the reason why, is because Starfield has the ability to do something like this to us, like come out and live up to expectations and just be this monumental release. I just hope it happens. But looking to the future, I don't know. Like, Breath of the Wild 2 can't do it to me. It can't. Like, there's
Yeah,
no way.
I
We
expect
already
something
know
iterative out of Breath of the Wild rather than
exactly.
revolutionary.
So, like, what else this game felt pretty revolutionary to me. Starfield might be able to. I don't know, like, what else on the horizon can. But to me, probably Grand Theft Auto 6. It seems like a Rockstar game, but I don't know. But what do you guys think? And just a quick question, we'll move on. What do you guys think is the next big, like, monumental release that can be revolutionary and reaches this zeitgeist gaming hype moment? I mean, Starfield, I guess. I mean, is there any other ones that you guys have?
Yeah, Starfield is very hotly anticipated. I'm nervous.
Yeah, I'm very nervous.
Just because of Bethesda's recent track record. But I really hope that
Man,
if they do,
if
I'm
they
really
do,
rooting for them.
Yeah,
I'm
me too.
really, really rooting for them on this one, because I love Bethesda. I love their games, and I want them to succeed.
Yep.
I don't, it's tough. I think you're right. GTA 6 is one of the only ones that could probably hold a candle in terms of hype. I mean, I would have said Cyberpunk before, and the hype was certainly at a similar fever pitch. But we don't really know what's going to catch fire the same way that these games have in terms of anticipation. Certainly, From Software's next game is going to be extremely
Yeah.
hotly anticipated.
I mean, this to me, this puts them kind of on the map, like CD Projekt. They were more on the map before, but Witcher 3 was huge for CD Projekt Red, and I think this is going to be just as huge for From Software.
Yeah, I will be very interested to see what their first month sales numbers look like. To see what where are they sitting? Are they sitting at the? Certainly, they're going to be more at than the 5 million sold mark. I think we're looking somewhere more like 10, but it could be by the end of the year. I could be 20. You could be right, Cole, because this game is selling way better than expected.
I personally, the only thing that I can see on my horizon is God of War Ragnarok coming up, but that's not.
Yeah, and see, to me, that's still an iteration. It's a sequel. It's not going to be revolutionary. It could come out and get 90 like good scores, but
So here it is.
this big monumental game, I don't know.
It's not going to be the gameplay. It's going to be the story. The story is what you go to God of War. I mean, it had amazing gameplay in that 2018 iteration. Ridiculous game. So high up on the list. But this follow-up game, they have to know it's not going to rest on that. They clearly haven't changed the gameplay at all. There's going to be a little bit with Atreus doing different stuff together. I think there's bits mentioned of them separating at some point too. What the first game promises with where it will be heading in terms of the story, the relationships, I think that's where Ragnarok is going to excel. I think people have to be ready to strap in for an emotional thrill ride, get your tissues, get your beers, take a drink every time he says boy, which may not happen at all because you did call him Atreus, I think, at the end. Yeah, I think that's the only thing on my radar at the moment. But Elden Ring, 3 of us, 2 thumbs up.
Yeah.
6 thumbs up.
Absolutely.
Awesome.
On a more serious note, we are currently witnessing an incredibly shocking and unprecedented series of events going on in Ukraine with Russia's invasion, and many companies in the games industry have responded. I thought it would be interesting to kind of look at the responses of studios and publishers and companies and the way that they're dealing with what is a hot war in Ukraine that has taken the lives of, as of March 1st, the UN reported that 227 civilians had been killed and 525 were injured. And it's already been almost, I guess it's been about half a week since then. So we have a pretty widespread response from a number of companies, big and small. Many companies, Microsoft, I think chief among them, because Microsoft has ceased all business across all of their verticals, not just Xbox. Yep. With Russia, they have ceased all business with Russia. PlayStation seems to have quietly pulled Gran Turismo 7 in Russia and did not release the game, though it launched yesterday, March 4th. And yeah, so some studios are not doing business in Russia anymore, not selling their games in Russia. This is one way. CD Projekt is another. They've stopped selling their games in Russia. This is one way to. Well, here's a question. I understand. I certainly understand the intent of a move like this, to unequivocally show your position on what's going on in terms of what the government is doing. But what really is the purpose of a move like this to stop selling your games in this region? Aside from the sales tax on the purchases of each of these games, who is being harmed?
Well, imagine if you're living in Russia and you just don't agree with what your government's doing, but you can't play games, you can't use Microsoft services and all this stuff. Like, I don't know. I think that they're just trying to. I think it's just a PR move, and I feel like game companies are usually guilty of this, like jumping on whatever the PR thing, whatever everybody's doing that's right. A lot of game companies will just jump on board, and they got to be a part of it so they can, be right socially. But what do you
Activision
think,
Blizzard
Matt?
has announced that they are
Oh,
donating.
Activision Blizzard.
I think they said that in their statement that they're matching employee donations and seeking to double what they're matching as well, without explicitly giving them money. So in some cases, it'll
Well,
look like a PR stunt for sure.
yeah. Well, that seems better. They're not, because some people in Russia don't have nothing to. They might not agree with this. I don't think. I don't know. What do you
Definitely.
think, Ben?
Yeah, I know. I totally agree. I think I do think Microsoft is one thing. Their business reaches into many sectors that go well beyond entertainment, selling entertainment to people. In most other cases, we're talking about people who make video games refusing to sell their video games to
Russian
civilians
civilians?
in Russia.
That doesn't make any sense. Like, Putin's not playing video games over there. Like, I mean, I don't think he, you know.
Yeah, right. So, I mean, who exactly does this hurt? What exactly is the intent here? I understand the move of solidarity, and I'm not necessarily questioning that. I just don't know that this is the right way to do it. I feel like
What if they just said,
I
"Look,
feel
we're
like
going to sell it."
the
We'll
ideal is to find a way to proactively support Ukraine while not punishing your fan base in a
Okay.
different region.
Well, look,
because
here's
it's
what they
their
should have done.
government does.
They should have said, "We'll sell it to everybody in Russia, and every dime we make from the Russian civilians that buy this game, we're going to donate it to the Ukraine."
So I'm really glad we're talking about this in this way,
Yeah.
because it's important, right? This is exactly what comes up with every issue in the games industry. It's about money. Happened with Activision Blizzard. That was a small set of people making really crap decisions, and people choosing not to buy the game was going to impact the devs more than it was going to the company. In this case, in an entire planet driven by capitalism, there are very few ways to show solidarity that will have a significant impact. And I think the entire world is choosing to put a chokehold on Russia, despite it being a communist nation where one dude makes decisions for the entire country that the rest of them don't have to agree with. Like, whatever small level of democracy there is involved with this, like, choice isn't a thing. And Netflix has pulled out of Russia because they're not going to broadcast their content, even though Russia put through a bill of agreement that said they had to broadcast channels, including the propaganda ones that Putin likes to talk about his stuff on. I think this is the thing that shows impact, and that can it's the thing that postures well. But monetary impact is where it hits things quite strongly too. And I think that the thing that doesn't get talked about enough is how the money taken from Russia, it's also money that's going to the Ukraine. And a story came out today, I think, about how the Ukrainian government with donations has been sourcing bulletproof vests and ammunition and stuff that they can use to protect themselves. In fact, it was a cryptocurrency-based article where people were sending Ethereum, Bitcoin, Solana, tons of stuff that they could convert to funds and then purchase equipment to protect themselves.
Yeah, and Ukraine is essentially crowdfunding a war right now, which is resistance to an invasion, which is pretty incredible, and a strange sign of our times.
It is.
But I can't shake this feeling that that pulling your entertainment products out of Russia is not really the negative reinforcement here is not as powerful as the positive proactive reinforcement, which is donating money, which a lot of developers are doing. And I think all of the studios that pulled their products are also donating. So I'm not trying to say that, these people are hypocrites or anything. I think they are putting their money where their mouth is. Certainly CD Projekt, I'm looking at the number right here. They're donating millions of I don't know what Poland's currency is, but millions to, humanitarian relief. But I can't really understand wanting to essentially punish your player base for something that their autocratic government is doing.
Yeah.
It doesn't quite sit right to me. I understand the severity of the situation, of course. And if this is the only thing you feel like you think you can do, maybe. And again, I think it's a different question with Microsoft. We're talking about a different scale of impact there in the way that their technology reaches into so many spheres. When you're talking about the ability to play a video game.
But speaking specifically about Microsoft too, I think in their statement there, it's new stuff. I don't think they're selling new things, but do you think there's any businesses in Russia that have service level agreements with Microsoft for support? And did
they shut down their
cloud?
They're gonna shut down their cloud. Did they shut down their cloud services and all this kind of stuff over there?
I'm not sure.
I wonder if they just can't even log into their Microsoft account. That would be. I mean, that would be really having a detrimental effect on Russia for sure. Like, if the governments can't log into their Microsoft accounts for stuff, that's crazy. So that would really would be an impact. But the game company's just kind of saying, "Hey, me too. We're going to jump on board. We're not going to let them play Gran Turismo. Yeah, we're not going to let them play Dead Cells." I mean, it's just a little ridiculous. I agree.
Just as one other thing to throw into the mix, just in to try and buff out the argument for it a little bit, the Ukrainian leadership submitted an open letter on social media requesting game developers and publishers remove access to games for whatever impact they saw fit. They were actively looking for support from the games industry to be able to do this. So I understand what you're asking there, Ben, because we would all look on it too. Like there's players in Russia that disagree with what's happening and shouldn't have to be bereft of their entertainment for that reason. But at the same time, if Ukraine makes a call and says, "Hey guys, can you give us a hand?" What do you think the game studios would be able to do at that point? May have been them not necessarily backed into a corner, but if someone looks at the audience and says, "You agree that war is bad, right?" No one's going to sit down and cross their arms and go, "Nope."
Yeah, I totally agree, but it certainly is not so simple. The argument, which is why most of the studios, I mean, we're citing primarily a roundup of action studios have taken that was written up on gamesindustry.biz. And the majority of the studios mentioned are doing what I consider like proactive measures in donating money or setting up fundraisers, that kind of thing, versus revoking services. And to clarify with Microsoft, they are in compliance with US and UK sanctions. A lot of their services are not going to be available in Russia, but they are also preventing any new sales of games in Russia.
But I know what you mean by that. Yep. Like the first, sorry, I'm jumping on top of you there, but the first perfect example of what you're saying, instead of revoking services, just doing donations, is this War of Mine, which was 11-bit studios. They've been donating all the profits from the games they've been selling to the fund, and
but they also revoked the game. They had it taken off of GOG. At least I'm not sure if it's off of Steam in Russia, but it is off of GOG.
Okay. Cool. Microphone's gone. Tech issues. Yeah, well, GOG made a position very closely as well. I think I'm pretty sure CD Projekt Red and GOG are now separated, but they're both Polish based.
Well, CD Projekt, the parent company, still owns both of them.
Does? Okay.
Yes.
That
But
makes
CD
sense.
Projekt Red is the developer. CD Projekt is the parent company, and GOG is the storefront.
I mean, I'm not trying to get political, but like, obviously it's awful what's happening in Ukraine, but you kind of got to feel for the Russian civilians too, because imagine if our president, whether Republican or Democrat, was doing something that we didn't agree with, and it was just destroying our economy. Like some of those, like imagine we were just invading Mexico. And me and you just didn't agree with this, and they were just going over there, just bombing civilians, and then the rest of the world is just cutting us off, and our
We annexed
livelihoods
Canada
going down.
like in Fallout.
Yeah, and then Japan says we're not going to release Elden Ring because you guys are bombing Mexico. We're like, well, shit, man, I don't want to be bombing Mexico.
Yeah, right.
Let me play Elden Ring. I mean, at least to deal with all this, I don't know. I mean, but it's just a sucky situation.
That is how I feel about it. I think there is a difference between the Russian populace and the Russian government, and I certainly understand wanting to do everything you can to attempt to cut off the problem at its source, which is its funding. So allowing any money to move through Russia, whether it's for something as otherwise mundane as a video game, otherwise not really intersecting with Russia's ability to do war, it's still, Russia is taking some cut of every sale. That's just called sales tax. It happens in every no matter where you live. So in some way, moving any money through the state is unacceptable. I understand that position. At the same time, man, it's hard. As somebody who makes games, your players everywhere are still your players, and it would hurt me to have to punish a set of players who lives under an autocratic dictator who has no choice. Well, who has very little choice in what that autocratic dictator does and says, and them not being able to play my game because of that. I don't know. There's no good option, but this is war. It is a literal war.
Yeah.
I think it's old values being applied to our new world that hasn't caught up yet. Because social media is the thing that makes our planet smaller, but it makes our communities more intersected as well. Like we have a subsection of gaming community in Russia that doesn't agree with what's happening there, but the political scenario of war is making all Russia all bad. And so it's very easy to make decisions like that because they're politicized and because of the nature of approaches to war hasn't changed. Whereas if we had smaller communities that could be respected in different ways, the way they are on social media, even with freedom of speech is brought up in the chat there. Freedom of speech is brought up in the US Constitution quite a bit, but other countries don't have that same right, just like Russia does. But social media gives them a platform and a voice, maybe not in China, but wherever it's possible. And it kind of creates different communities than it did back in the 1920s when people were in countries and that was their community.
Right.
It's again, that's not a proposing a solution or an objection or a criticism of anything that's happening. It's just
no, but it is strange. It's very weird to observe this time of war in this so connected world that we're in now. It's crazy, and I've been thinking about that a lot lately. Like it's just, when's the last time a major country has waged war on another country like this? I mean, was it World War II? Like not the war in Iraq and not like Desert
I mean,
Storm,
Iraq was against the sitting government.
Yeah, but it didn't feel like this though. You know what I mean? It didn't
the reason it didn't feel like this is because it was remote to the west. I mean, this is on the west's back door.
Yeah, I think.
I mean, a invasion of another sovereign nation in Europe has not been a thing since the end of the Cold War. So it
Yeah.
feels like the Cold War just
It does.
reignited.
It does.
And
It does.
we're
It does.
talking about mutually assured destruction again, and it's a kind of crazy territory that we're sitting in right now, which is probably part of the reason that it feels materially different, is because we're talking about the entire world positioned against a nuclear power once again.
Yeah, exactly.
In an active conflict. Yeah,
And they're throwing out threats too.
Yeah,
Like, I
like
think
the chat
Putin-
says first massive land war in Europe since World War II. I mean,
Yeah.
it's insane, and the world is just so different now. It's just so odd. It's almost like it's just surreal. It's seriously a surreal feeling.
and it changes. Like even the war in Iraq, the message was very strongly and tightly controlled because you'd see what was on TV. Social media was, in its infancy at that stage. Whereas
Mhm.
now you go to the funny pages on Reddit and you see warnings about seeing memes trying to affirm the actions of Russian generals and telling people to report them because they're trying to do social manipulation and cyber manipulation to try and turn the tide of the war. It's a different place we're in now. It's really weird.
It is.
That said, the overall reaction by the games industry has been swift, and this I think is one of the upsides to something that I think we often complain about, this kind of activist posture of a lot of the games industry. This is good. I mean, I can't say anything to criticize really the rallying of the games industry around Ukraine so quickly, and this is something that is not not simply about our industry. It's much bigger than that, and many other industries have done the exact same thing. Many other governments have done the exact same thing. Many other groups of people have done the exact same thing. But I think the games industry is doing a good job all in all. Affirming solidarity with Ukraine, and even though there are many different ways you could dice that solidarity, and we could argue about how exactly to do that. The fact that, I mean, just scrolling through this, like I said, this gamesindustry.biz article, there's there are millions of dollars raised by these companies in a week to support Ukraine and its people, and I think that's great.
It can't be seen as nothing but a good thing, right? So.
Yep.
The ability of the games industry, the games audience, everyone involved to mobilize this way is really cool.
And you got to remember, we are we are, like, I'm part of the games industry. The games industry, yeah, I guess so.
Consumers are crucial.
Piece of it. Well, the games industry is the biggest entertainment industry by far. So as far as money brought in, it's not even comparable. But yeah, it's good to see.
Yeah.
Well, let's talk about one more thing before we wrap it up for tonight.
It's a secret
Sure.
topic.
No, we talked about this. We talked about this a little bit. What's going on with? Okay, first of all, Nvidia is just getting hacked left and right. Come on, guys.
Yep.
what is going on with Nvidia? Second of all, latest Nvidia hack, apart from the horrific and jaw-dropping number of 71,000 Nvidia employees having their credentials leaked, which I didn't even know that Nvidia had 71,000 employees whose credentials could be leaked. But anyway, ransomware attack. What is going on? Can you guys explain this to me?
Matt?
Sure. Yeah, I feel like we need some PC gamer representation in your group.
Right.
I'm not sure how many of you are actually PC gamers, but I'm the tech head, I think, at least on the podcast today. Look, Nvidia has been making waves a lot of the time. More recently, they tried to purchase ARM, which is one of the more popular processor manufacturers that fell out, unfortunately. So they've been making waves for a little while. But one of the biggest waves that was made was them adding a component to their graphics card, or some of the graphics cards that they sell, called the LHR, the hash limiter, to avoid cryptocurrency miners from using their graphics cards, because we've been in a lull for a very long time. graphics cards have inflated in price to beyond their MSRP, even in retail stores. And you can barely purchase them because they fly off the shelves in very fast fashion. I myself purchased a graphics card before that boom, and now it retails for $300 Australian more than it did when I bought it, which is kind of cool. But it also tells me I'm never going to be able to upgrade for like a year or so. But anyway, so avoiding cryptocurrency miners from being able to purchase these cards has, removed a section of the market.
Yep.
And there has been a bit of a workaround, but the hackers that procured the 1 terabyte of files, which are employee information, HR information, and a lot of proprietary plans and building stuff for NVIDIA products, they have issued an ultimatum. They have said, remove the hash rate limiting stuff on the graphics cards, or we leak the rest of this to the entire planet. They list gaming and crypto mining together. I think it's more so the crypto than anything else. The interesting landscape for this, though, is that a lot of countries are starting to dive on crypto mining as a bit of a thing. You can't do it in China anymore, at least to some level, without getting in trouble. A lot of countries are starting to endorse the use of cryptocurrency. So it's kind of, on balance, a weird thing. But NVIDIA as a company, it's really hard to do things right. They've tried to do the right thing with this, and it doesn't seem like they're going to bow to the demands. What that means for the whole terabyte of stuff that might get leaked, I don't know. But I'm sure a lot of people are frustrated because we've just seen graphics cards slide in price a little bit. I think it was 11%, seeking for it to drop at least by Q2 of this year to something a bit more reasonable. But the other thing, lest I talk too much about the NVIDIA hacks, there was the GeForce Now hack from a little while ago that had a bunch of games leaked that were on PC, where exclusively they were not before. And then God of War for PC came out, and that was on that list. So it kind of...
Yeah, a lot of the games that were on that list have been more or less confirmed at this point, right? So it's pretty clear that list was legit and not something cooked up by 4chan.
And that was one spreadsheet.
Right.
Like, this is a terabyte of stuff.
So do we have any sort of idea what could be part of this leak when you said it. I think NVIDIA would be crazy to bow to these guys. They've got an incredible PR nightmare if they allow the crypto miners who illegally stole a bunch of information from them to win the day. I don't think they can do that. So I think they just have to allow their proprietary information to be leaked online. From a certain mindset, it's already been leaked. Like, there's the ultimatum might as well have not been made. It's the stuff's already out in the wild. There's no
guarantees.
Yeah, there's no putting out that fire. So you might as well just embrace it and say, no, we're not gonna backslide on our commitment to our actual consumers, who are the gamers that we're trying to sell these things to. And we put the hash limiter on for a reason, and it's gonna stay. And sorry to us, because our shit's gonna be all over the internet. But what are we expecting to be part of that?
Part of the leak?
Yeah, part of the leak.
The only thing that has kind of trickled its way out is a folder called NVM2, I think, which held details for a new graphics chipset that is related to DLSS, meant to upscale content on Nintendo products.
Okay,
so
Nintendo
this is
DLSS. That's crazy.
Yes, so this appears to be a little bit of something that's been developed that could potentially look at.
And this has been rumored for a long time, right? And the next Nintendo Switch would have DLSS capabilities, right? Have you heard about that, Ben?
I hadn't heard about that.
Yeah,
but
so
that's a big deal. I mean, if they can
that
get
would be awesome.
DLSS on Switch, they can.
Man, it's really impressive stuff. If they got it on the Switch, you would basically have, like, you could have PS5 quality looking games maybe running on the Switch.
I mean,
DLSS
it won't
is
get to
incredible.
PS5 quality, but
No,
you
but
can stretch your rendering budget
yeah,
way farther.
yeah.
That way.
Well,
It's
included.
incredible. Like I cannot believe I watched all this for like an hour one day and was blown away. But it has to be tailored to each individual game, I think, right? I think each game has to like work with NVIDIA somehow on this or something. Like it's not like it's that easy to implement, I don't think.
So that's the stuff
I
that
don't
was
know.
contained in that folder, the API that connects the technology to the DLSS that developers could use to build for the platform. That's the stuff that's contained in that folder. And
Got you.
look, it's the Apple of things, right? They're working with
Mhm.
one piece of hardware, whereas the computers of the world, if you release on PC, there's like 1,600 different graphics cards and that many other CPUs you could be working with too.
Mhm.
But yeah,
That's
you
crazy.
know, Switch Pro or Switch 2, whatever that's going to be in 3 or 4 years, new hardware, DLSS, and maybe finally Metroid Dread at 4K 60 frames per second without emulating it on a
Don't
computer.
get your hopes up. Unless they're just reselling Metroid Dread as Metroid Dread 4K for another $60, then you might get it. But we'll see.
Maybe. I love that story about when Dread was released and they saw it was 30 frames capped at 720 and someone went, hold my beer, and within a week they had 4K 60 FPS on computer on a Switch emulator going, and it looked amazing.
What a
Like that,
shame.
that's the stories that I like to hear.
That's
Excellent.
insane.
But yeah,
Well,
Nvidia getting hacked like front and center.
yeah.
To see what happens.
We will keep our eyes peeled for more NVIDIA hacks. A wealth of information leaking straight out of the spigot right there.
Yeah.
But until then, this has been the Dukes of Gaming. Thank you very much for tuning in live. And Matt, please plug the
Thank
dead
you.
drop for us.
Because it was meant to be at the start, wasn't it? We kind of got swept up in Elden Ring.
Yeah.
So yeah, Dukes of Gaming listeners, if you're keen to hear a bit more about the gaming news and hear from me, and if I don't happen to be lucky enough to be a regular guest here, then you can find my podcast, The Dead Drop, for video game news on your podcast player. There's also a website, deaddroppod.com, and I release on a Tuesday, Thursday, and Saturday, at least Australian time. And every episode is under 10 minutes. If you want a really quick wrap up of the stories of the week, it's a really good approach to it. Well, of course, I'm saying that, but I try to remove all the fluff. Like whenever you read an article that's about 3 paragraphs long and you realize you read one sentence that actually gave you information and then discarded the rest as background you already knew, trying to avoid that stuff with it. So I'm not asking much of your time. Would love your support though. Head to deaddrop.com, deaddroppod.com, tongue twister. And yeah, looking forward to seeing you all there. And I really want to expand out into more than just the news. I want to get you guys on for interviews. Ben, I'd love to talk to you about Bungie at some point, whatever you're allowed to, of course. Yeah, so growth opportunity. And thank you guys for having me on to talk about it too. I know that your audience will be very switched on in the game space, I'm sure.
Excellent. Well, thank you so much, Matt, for guesting and being our drop dead Duke here.
Yeah, I love that.
This week.
I need my own card. That'd be awesome.
Yeah. Excellent. Well, thank you everybody once again for tuning in to Dukes of Gaming, and please leave a like, a review, a comment, anything you can to help support the show. Follow us on Twitch. We would love to get to 50 follows as soon as we can. And you can email us at therealdukesofgaming@gmail.com to have your questions read live on air. Check out all of our socials in the description as well. We will be coming at you next week at the same time, around 7:30 Pacific, because you're on the East Coast over there, Cole. And on Saturdays. And until next time, I bid thee farewell.
See you.